Why stay in a relationship where you are being psychologically abused? If you are being psychologically abused, you probably don't even understand what is happening to you. Besides just realizing it, factors such as fear, indecision, or emotions such as guilt can sometimes cause you to stay in an abusive relationship. If you are being psychologically abused and you are unhappy, you may be asking yourself, why don't I just end the relationship? The answer to this question, which outsiders tend to ask of people with abusive partners, can be hidden behind a complex web of factors. Fear, shame, indecision, confusion, and even love can cause a person to stay in a toxic relationship. Neuroscience often tells us that our brains are designed to favor social connections. That's why something beyond the mere commitment is built when you start a relationship with someone. Your brain structures also turn to this connection. They begin to get used to your daily interactions, your love for the person, and the intimacy you both share. This is why people often downplay the importance of controlling or abusive behavior. The brain chooses not to process the reality of the injuries that are inflicted on them. It stubbornly tries to save the relationships because it assumes that the truth can be extremely painful. Little by little, the perception is clouded by a sophisticated self-defense. Psychological abuse is a very sophisticated trap. Therefore, you should not underestimate its power by suggesting that the victim is blind, naive, or indecisive when they remain in an abusive relationship. The tactics used by the controlling person are often both subtle and persistent. Thus, it is not easy to get up and walk away. Give words to grief. The grief that does not speak bursts open the worn-out heart and bids it break. William Shakespeare. Why stay in a relationship if you are being psychologically abused? If you are psychologically abused, it will take a long time to accept this reality. It is possible that the people around you have asked you how you can tolerate certain behaviors, actions, or words. Nevertheless, you tend to ignore comments like these. You may simply think that other people cannot see what you see in your partner. It is possible that you often tell yourself that they are special and that it is worth staying in the relationship for. You repeat this inner dialogue with yourself day after day until one day you come to realize that it just doesn't make sense. At this point, you become aware of the trap you have fallen into. That moment can evoke unexpected emotions. Despite being aware of the abuse, you may not have the strength to leave the relationship because you are suddenly filled with fear. In fact, a study conducted by Jacobson N. Gottman J.M. and Gortner E. at the University of Washington found that these situations can last an average of 2 to 5 years. Below we discuss some of the reasons why it can be difficult to leave these types of relationships. Psychological freezing. Psychological abuse ultimately has the same kind of effect as trauma. This type of abuse constantly damages self-esteem, dignity, and self-image. The victim ends up suffering the same symptoms as those experienced during a stressful situation. They feel mentally drained, suffer from headaches, and may experience muscle pain and memory loss. All this can often lead to a state of psychological freezing. That is, the abused comes to separate themselves from their feelings. In order not to suffer, they want to avoid feeling pain. This in turn increases the attacker's motivation to continue causing damage. Abuse tactics that change a person's way of thinking. Something that we often forget when we talk about psychological abuse is that the abuser justifies his actions. They always use love as a basic tool to maintain power. Every demand they use to control the victim they want will be justified by their love for them. But this false and double-sided affection will always weaken the abused partner. The person being psychologically abused uses justifications, cognitive dissonance, and false beliefs to assume their role in this dynamic. Little by little, these manipulation tactics will change their way of thinking, and even their personality. There will be times when they come to believe that everything that happens to them is their own fault. They will end up hating themselves and experience feelings of shame and anxiety. You need to rebuild yourself to rewrite your story after being psychologically abused. When you are psychologically abused, you need to rebuild yourself. This abuse can leave you exhausted or very vulnerable. Therefore, you may find that it is extra difficult to end the relationship. You probably need help doing this. Experts recommend that you trust trustworthy people and professionals. They are the ones who can help you rewrite your story and help you heal. Psychological abuse doesn't leave visible scars on your body, but it can erase many parts of your old self. It dries up identity, changes your sense of self-awareness, eats away at your self-esteem, and eradicates your values. You can rebuild yourself again after being psychologically abused. You have to trust your own resilience to make it through. Your goal should be to become a strong person who is ready to live a more self-fulfilled life. Although you cannot forget your past, this relationship is only a small part of your story. It is something that should not define your future or your ability to create happy future memories.